Hello and welcome to Model Kit Stuff. It's First Impressions Day and I've got another figure for you. This time it's not plastic, it's not white metal, it's resin. Roll music. So this was actually a gift to me from my partner. I believe she bought this at the Telford International Model Show, which would have been, well, the last one before the pandemic. So was that 2019? I don't remember. So I got this, and I got a nice wooden pedestal to put it on. Now, the figure comes from a company called Mitches Military Models, and it's a First World War Canadian infantryman, and he's in a resting pose, but he's got his full kit on. He's got his rifle with him, and he's got a mug of tea. So it's 120 millimeters, and that is pretty much everything the box tells you. Parts come loose inside a bubble wrapped box, and clearly this is clearly a slightly less professional presentation than the Bonito metal figure that we've just looked at. And I believe it's a one-man band and a bit of a cottage industry. But the box packaging is good and will take some knocks without any of the parts getting damaged. So I have primed these parts in black primer so that we can better see the detail and texturing. Actually, when you get this, all of the parts are moulded in this sandy yellow resin, which many of you will be familiar with if you've been buying into resin parts for a long time. This is the material that was first on the market when resin products started appearing for model builders. So let's take a start with the face and head. I think that always sets the tone for a figure. And what we've got is clearly an older guy by the expression on his face and the wrinkles on his brow. I would say probably 50s, which seems a little odd for an infantryman. He's got a moustache, a little dimple on the chin there. The face looks quite natural. The ears are well depicted, and the hair is well moulded also. Yeah, so I don't find anything particularly wrong with that. I think that's a really nice look. He just looks a little old for his role, would be my only comment. If I compare that to other resin heads I've got, such as this SAS North Africa bust, he certainly looks, even though he looks rugged, he certainly looks younger. And the same with, I have a German Alpine figure, and you can see, ignore the fact that they're different scale, you can see that they look much younger than this fella. So yeah, that bothers me a little bit. He's, you know, you'd expect that sort of head on maybe a colonel or a general, possibly. Looking at the main body himself, I think he's got a fairly natural pose. The fall of the trousers is nice and natural as well. The boots are okay. We'll come back to why they're only okay in a sec, I think. And then the wrapping looks good. We do have a bit of a seam there that we're going to have to clean up, I think. Then as we move on to his tunic, again, the fall is relatively natural. We've got a bread bag on the side there already moulded in, which looks okay. And then you've got his strapping and little ammunition pouches. Buttons are quite prominent, and so is the lapel detail. But one thing that is definitely noticeable is the pretty rough texture of the figure generally. Not just where we've got some moulding issues that need cleaning up, but the whole thing is rough. It doesn't look like material. You've got little lumps in it. You've got a strange texture to it. And that follows all the way through. So you can see lots and lots of little lines going across there. Some of it is supposed to be there because it's the cut of the tunic, but then all these little lumps and things on his chest, they wouldn't be on material. And particularly prominent on the trousers, where you can see that it's all very strangely lumpy. And I think that's the material used, and not the best finishing that I've seen. Now, if I compare that with the shirt on this figure here, then everything is very, very crisp and completely smooth, only creased where it needs to be creased. And I know the scale is different, but I have small resin figures that are not having issues with the texture like this is. So yeah, I mean, that is definitely pretty rough compared to that, and compared to that. Yeah, so it's definitely not the best quality, to the point where here, where we've got the belt, it's actually quite difficult to see what's belt and what needs cleaning up. So it's the same with the arms. I think the look of the arms is quite natural. The folds in the material look quite good. You've got sort of natural creases in the places where you'd expect them. But again, look at the texture. Really, really rough. So every little surface, and you can see the lumps there. Every little surface is going to need to be sanded smooth. It's a huge job. And you can see, I mean, look at just above the badges there, you can see really quite rough. And you compare that to this sleeve here, and you've got a little bit of a seam to clean up, but the rest of it is totally smooth, ready to go. So I just think it's probably the material they've used. It just hasn't lent itself as well, and the finishing of the figure is just not quite to the standard that you can get from other companies. As I look at the hands, they're actually quite bad, to the point where you can't see details like fingernails and stuff, but they look chunky. They're not quite right. The back of the hands isn't so bad, but the fingers, looks like he's got gloves on. They look like gorilla fingers. They're just because they're not cleanly molded. And look at that on the inside. We might not see the inside, but it is very rough. The cup's okay, but the inside of the cup, whatever he's drinking, has got a massive dip in it. So we're going to have to put some product in that to fill that and level that to make it look natural. And the first one of the separate packs, and actually this one doesn't look bad at all. We've got some very nice detail with the buckles there, nicely depicted with the little crimped metal ends on there. The folding all looks natural, and then you've got the little metal rings there that the strap terminates on, which looks quite good on both sides. So this pack would be mounted on the front here. Is that right? No, sorry, this is the one for the back. So that's going to go on the mounted on his backpack. So there would be loops on the back of that to allow him to have that mounted on there. So we just glue that on. So that should look all right. That doesn't look bad at all, that piece. It's still rough. It's definitely rough. If you look at the bottom of it, it's almost like there's fingerprints in it. We have another pack here. This one is the one that is suspended on the front, and this isn't as good as the last one. Once you've cleaned it up, it should be okay. But again, the fall of the material looks quite natural and nice, but somehow doesn't quite look like the thick material that it would have been. I'm not quite sure. I think it's the small little creases. The little metal clips on the side are nowhere near as well defined as on the other pack. You can't see them as well. Let's see. So we have some mounting straps there, so that should meet. Oh, it doesn't quite meet. Actually, those aren't wide enough to allow that to be mounted. It wouldn't be crooked, it would hang like that. So actually these straps don't go far enough down. So we're looking at his hat now, and well, if you look on the inside, you can see how roughly finished it is. This isn't even at all, so there's quite a bit of cleanup to do. Again, I have an issue with the texture, and you can see lots of little lumps and dinges in there. The whole thing needs to be sanded to be made right. There's quite a bit of damage on the back where bits are broken away, and you know, there's a location point on the top of the head which is to meet into the hat. So if we put him on, well, it's not positive at all. You might as well not have bothered because it doesn't fit. You've got huge gaps. We're going to have to put loads of filler in. So you end up sculpting your own hair at the top there. That's worthless. It's getting in the way, so I'm going to take that off. It might make this sit better down and get rid of the gap. The actual peak of the cap is a bit lumpy. It doesn't look right underneath. There's a crease on one side and a slight crease on the other. But that isn't even. The chin strap that's going across the top isn't even. So the drinking bottle actually really highlights what I'm talking about. There is some very nice crisp detail on there. The strapping, the chain that goes from the top to the neck of the bottle hanging down. Really nice. It looks all natural, but it's absolutely covered in fingerprints on the surface. So the whole thing's got to be sanded. So we've got his bayonet here, and that's not bad at all actually. In terms of surface detail, it's nice. It's probably the highlight of the figure. It's crisp. It's smooth. The stitching is a bit heavy-handed at the top there. It's just dimples pushed in, so that's a little bit heavy-handed. It's a little basic in places, I think. And then if we look at the rifle, my comment is the same. We don't have a strap for it at all, so we'd have to add that ourselves. Doesn't look too bad, but it's a bit sort of soft molded, I guess. It needs straightening, but that's not a massive issue. We can do that. But if you look at the ammunition clip, you know, it's not straight. It's not perfectly defined. It tapers, so the shape's wrong. The trigger is completely filled in. It's not great. So there we have it. Mitches Military Models. What's my first impression? I'm not really impressed. I'm not really blown away. I probably wouldn't buy a Mitches Military Models figure again without being able to hold it and see it in my hand first, because that's a bit rough and a bit basic around the edges. I think by modern standards, by some of the stuff that you can buy, and you can buy some really well done resin molds these days, I think by modern standards this is lagging behind. I think the material used is poor quality, and it's showing up all sorts of imperfections in the mold, and you can see them on the picture. You can see the lumps on the picture and how it's not smooth. So I will build it and I will paint it, but my bet is that will end up being my painting mule. So when I'm doing figures and I want to try different colours and things, I'll end up using this, because it's for me, it's not good enough, that standard for display. So yeah, there you have it. I think that's a little bit sloppy by today's standards, and I wouldn't say don't get one. What I'd say is you need to have lots of experience at figures, know what you're doing in terms of cleaning up, and be really interested in the subject matter. So yeah, even down to him looking too old for what he's doing, just doesn't feel right for me, the whole thing, unfortunately. It's not often that I say this, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. All right, hope that was useful. I'm hoping I'm not being too controversial, but that is my view of it. Now, I don't build a lot of resin figures, so I don't have a lot to compare with, but there's certainly much better resin figures out there. So if scale 75 can do something of that quality of finish in that scale, there's no comparison, is there? That is really rough. Thanks for looking in, everyone. Take care, enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.